The alarm bells rang through the bridge of the ethereal dawn as Captain Zareth studied the readings on her screen. Her blue skin turned darker with concern as she read the data twice to make sure it was correct. The distress beacon was coming, from Kepler 442c, a world that no living being should be able to survive on. "Are you certain about this location?" she asked her science officer, Keth Moore. The crystal-like being's body glowed brighter as he checked his instruments again. "Yes, Captain. The signal is definitely coming from the surface of Kepler 4042c, but that should be impossible," Keth Moore replied, his voice crackling like breaking glass. Security Commander Veltar moved her 8 legs nervously as she approached the captain's chair. Her black armor made soft clicking sounds with each step. "Captain, that planet has been marked as a Class-20 deathworld for over 200 years. Nothing can live there for more than a few hours." Captain Zareth knew the facts about Class-20 worlds. The air was poison to most species. Radiation levels would cook internal organs within minutes. The creatures that lived there were massive killing machines. Weather storms could flatten mountains. Temperature swings went from freezing cold to burning hot every day. Even the water would dissolve most known life forms. "Show me the planet on the main screen," the captain ordered. The view screen filled with an image of Kepler 442c. It looked like a nightmare world. Red storms swirled across brown and gray continents. Lightning flashed constantly through thick dark clouds. Even from space, they could see massive creatures moving across the surface like moving mountains. "The beacon signal is weak but steady," reported Communications Officer Yextri from his station. "It's been broadcasting for approximately 72 hours. "What kind of beacon is it?" asked the captain. "It appears to be a standard galactic distress signal, but the technology is not from any of the major species we know," Keth Moore answered while studying his readings. The captain stood up and walked to the science station. Her crew watched her carefully. They all knew what she was thinking. Someone or something was alive on that hellish world, and they were calling for help. "Can our sensors detect any life signs?" she asked. Keth Moore's crystalline fingers danced over his controls. "Yes, Captain. One life form, approximately 1.7 meters tall, bipedal, near the beacon's location. It appears to be moving with purpose." "Moving with purpose?" Veltar's mandibles clicked together nervously. "You mean it's not just surviving, it's actively doing things?" "That is correct. The life form seems to be following regular patterns of movement, like it has daily activities." The bridge fell silent as everyone tried to understand what this meant. Something was not just alive on a Class-20 death world, but it was going about its business like it was just another day. "Captain, should we contact the Galactic Council?" asked Communications Officer Yextri. "Not yet," Captain Zareth replied. "First, we need to know what we're dealing with. Can we land on the surface?" Keth Moore shook his head, making tiny ringing sounds. "Negative, Captain. The atmosphere would eat through our hull in minutes. The radiation would fry our systems. Landing would be suicide. What about a drone? We have one heavy reconnaissance drone that might survive for a few hours if we reinforce its shielding," Chief Engineer Bell Knox called from his station near the back of the bridge. "Do it," the captain ordered. "I want to see what's down there." It took 3 hours to prepare the drone. They added extra shielding, upgraded its cameras, and loaded it with every sensor they could fit. Chief Engineer Bell Knox worked with his team to make sure it could survive long enough to get useful information. "Drone is ready for launch, Captain," Bell Knox reported. "Launch it. Put the feed on the main screen." The drone shot away from their ship like a silver bullet. As it entered the planet's atmosphere, the crew watched the sensor readings spike into dangerous levels. Radiation that would kill them in seconds. Acid in the air that would burn through their skin. Gravity almost twice what most of them were comfortable with. "Drone is holding together," reported Bell Knox. "Approaching the beacon location now." The image on the main screen showed a landscape that looked like the end of the world. Jagged rocks jutted up from poisonous ground. Strange plants with thorns, the size of spears, grew in twisted patterns. In the distance, they could see massive creatures fighting each other with claws that could slice through starship armor. "There," whispered Communications Officer Yextri. "Movement at coordinate 77 Mark 4. The drone's camera turned, and the entire bridge crew gasped. A figure was walking across the deadly landscape. It was small compared to the native creatures, maybe the size of a young Villani. But it moved with confidence, like it owned the place. The figure was wearing what looked like clothing made from animal skins and metal pieces. It carried tools that seemed to be made from scraps and bones. As they watched, it walked up to a massive predator that was drinking from a stream of liquid that would dissolve most metals. The creature was 3 times the figure's size, with teeth like swords and claws like spears. "It's going to be killed," Veltar said quietly. But the small figure didn't run. Instead, it made noise to get the predator's attention. When the monster turned, the figure threw something at it. The object hit the creature in the eye, and it roared in pain and anger. The sound was so loud it made the drone shake. What happened next shocked everyone on the bridge. The small figure didn't try to hide or run away. It stood its ground as the massive predator charged. At the last second, it moved to the side and struck the creature with a long, sharp tool. The predator stumbled, bleeding from a deep wound. The fight continued for several minutes. The small figure moved like a dancer, always staying just out of reach of the deadly claws and teeth. It struck again and again with its simple tools, wearing down the much larger creature. Finally, the massive predator collapsed and stopped moving. The small figure stood over its body, breathing hard but clearly alive and unhurt. "By the ancestors," whispered Captain Zarath. "What is that thing?" Kethmore was frantically scanning the figure with every sensor the drone had. "Captain, the readings are unusual. This creature's biology is unlike anything in our databases. Its bone density is extremely high. Its muscle tissue is incredibly efficient. Its brain activity suggests high intelligence." The figure on the screen noticed their drone hovering nearby. Instead of running or attacking, it began making gestures with its arms. The movements were clearly intentional and patterned. "It's trying to communicate," said Communications Officer Yextri with excitement. The figure held up one finger, then 2, then 3. Then it pointed to itself and held up one finger again. "Basic mathematics," said Kethmore. "It's showing us it understands numbers and wants to make contact." Captain Zarath looked at her crew. They had discovered something impossible, a creature that could not only survive on a Class-20 Deathworld, but could kill the native predators with simple tools, and wanted to talk to them. "Open a communication channel," she ordered. "Let's see what it has to say." The communication system crackled to life as the universal translator worked to make sense of the sounds coming from the small figure on the deadly planet below. After several minutes of electronic chirping and buzzing, a voice came through the speakers. "Hello up there. Can you hear me?" The voice was calm and friendly, nothing like what the crew expected from a creature that had just killed a massive predator with simple tools. Captain Zarath looked at her communications officer, who nodded that the signal was clear. "Yes, we can hear you," the captain replied carefully. "What are you?" "My name is Jake Morrison. I'm human, and boy, am I glad to see you guys." "Human?" Kethmore quickly searched through the galactic database. "Captain, there is no species called human in our records." Jake's voice came through again, sounding amused. "Yeah, that makes sense. We haven't made contact with anyone else yet. Well, except for you guys right now, I guess." Captain Zarath felt confused. This creature, this human, was talking like meeting aliens was just another interesting thing that happened to him today. "Jake Morrison," she said slowly, testing the strange name. "How long have you been on this planet?" "About 3 years now. My ship, the Pioneer's Dream, had engine trouble and crashed here. Been making the best of it since then." 3 years? Security Commander Veltar moved closer to the communications station, her 8 legs clicking rapidly on the floor. "That's impossible. Nothing can survive on a Class-20 Deathworld for 3 years. Class-20, is that what you call this place?" Jake laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. "It's not so bad once you get used to it. Had to make a few adjustments at first, but I've got a pretty good setup now." The crew exchanged worried looks. This human was talking about surviving on one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy like it was a camping trip. "Jake Morrison," Captain Zarath said, "can you describe your living situation for us?" "Sure thing. I've got a shelter built from parts of my old ship and some local materials. It's pretty solid, keeps out the rain and the smaller predators. I've got a water filtration system running off a nearby stream. Food is mostly local wildlife, though I had to learn which ones were safe to eat and how to cook them properly." Chief Engineer Belnox looked up from his station with horror. "He's drinking the water from this planet? You're consuming the local fauna?" asked Dr. Yathara, the ship's xenobiologist who had just arrived on the bridge. "Well, yeah," Jake replied like it was obvious. "Can't exactly order takeout out here. The water just needs to be boiled and filtered through some sand and charcoal I made. Gets rid of most of the nasty stuff. And the meat is actually pretty good once you cook it long enough. High in protein." Dr. Yathara pulled up the planet's environmental data on her tablet. Her tentacles turned pale as she read. "Captain, the water on this planet contains acids that would dissolve most organic tissue. The local animals have toxin levels that would kill most galactic species with a single bite." That explains why I felt sick the first few days," Jake said casually. "But you adapt pretty quick. Human digestive systems are pretty tough." "You felt sick and continued consuming these substances?" Dr. Yathara asked in amazement. "What choice did I have? It was that or starve. Besides, after a week or two I started feeling better than I had in years. All this fresh air and exercise, you know?" The crew stared at each other. This human was describing deadly toxins as health food and referring to the poisonous atmosphere of a Class-20 Deathworld as fresh air. "Jake," Captain Zarath said slowly, "can you tell us about your homeworld?" "Earth? Sure. It's a pretty nice place. Blue oceans, green forests, mountains, deserts. We've got about 8 billion people living there. It's got everything you need." 8 billion? Kethmore's crystalline body flashed brighter. 8 billion of your species live on one planet, give or take a few million, yeah? Why, is that a lot compared to other planets you know? The captain looked at her science officer. Most inhabited worlds in the galaxy had populations in the thousands or low millions. 8 billion was larger than the combined population of most star systems. "Jake, what is your planet's environmental classification?" asked Dr. Yathara. "Environmental what now? How dangerous is your world? What are the hazards?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "Well, I guess it depends on where you live. We've got some pretty big storms sometimes. Hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. Earthquakes happen, volcanoes, tsunamis. Most places are pretty safe, though, as long as you pay attention to the weather reports." The bridge went silent. Jake had just described natural disasters that would qualify a world as uninhabitable, and he talked about them like minor inconveniences. "What about the wildlife on Earth?" Dr. Yathara asked with growing concern. "Oh, we've got some great animals. Bears, lions, sharks, wolves. Used to have a lot more big predators, but humans kind of took over most of their territory over the last few thousand years." "You took territory from predators?" Veltar asked. As a warrior species, she understood the significance of this. "Well, yeah. Humans are pretty good at working together and making tools. Most of the dangerous animals avoid us now, except in a few wild areas we've set aside for them." The crew realized what Jake was saying. Humans hadn't just survived on their world alongside apex predators. They had become the dominant species, pushing out creatures that might be dangerous even by galactic standards. "Jake," Captain Zarath said carefully, "you mentioned making tools. Can you show us some of your equipment?" Through the drone's camera, they watched Jake walk over to a nearby rock and pick up several items. He held up a long, sharp spear made from metal and bone. "This is for hunting the bigger animals. The metal came from my ship's hull and the bone is from something that tried to eat me in my second week here." He showed them a bow made from flexible wood and metal cables. "This is for smaller game and for fighting at a distance." Then he picked up what looked like a club with sharp stones embedded in it. "And this is for close combat. Pretty effective against most things I've run into." Engineer Belnox studied the weapons through the drone's sensors. "Captain, those tools are incredibly well made. The metalwork shows advanced understanding of metallurgy. He's created a balanced, efficient weapons system using only salvage and local materials. How did you learn to make these things? Asked the captain. Basic human knowledge, I guess. My dad taught me some metalworking when I was a kid. Learned about hunting and survival from books and videos. When you need something to stay alive, you figure it out pretty quick. Dr. Yuthara looked at her readings again. Captain, his vital signs are remarkable. His heart rate is steady, his breathing is normal, and his brain activity suggests he's completely relaxed. He's not showing any signs of stress, despite living in conditions that should be constantly life-threatening. This is just another day. For you, isn't it? Captain Zareth asked. Jake laughed again. Pretty much. Though talking to aliens is definitely a new one. This is probably the most interesting thing that's happened since I fought off that pack of those big cat things last month. Pack of what? Veltar demanded. Oh, these predators about the size of your shuttle. Hunt in groups of 5 or 6. Took me a while to figure out their attack patterns, but once you know what to look for, they're not too hard to deal with. Security. Commander Veltar, who had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy, felt a chill run through her armored body. This small, seemingly fragile creature was casually describing fighting off multiple predators the size of spacecraft. Jake Morrison, Captain Zareth said, I think we need to have a much longer conversation. Over the next several hours, Jake Morrison continued talking to the crew of the Ethereal Dawn while he went about his daily activities. They watched in fascination and growing horror as he demonstrated what he called a normal day on the Class-20, Deathworld. So this is my morning routine, Jake said, walking toward a stream that their sensors showed was flowing acid strong enough to eat through their ship's hull. Gotta check the water trap I set up yesterday. The crew watched as Jake reached into the deadly liquid with his bare hands and pulled out a fish-like creature that was still alive and thrashing. The thing had teeth like metal spikes and claws that could cut through stone. Nice size on this one, Jake said happily, holding the struggling predator like it was a pet. This'll make good dinner. Dr. Yuthara's tentacles were curled up in distress. Jake, our sensors show that creature's bite contains enough toxin to kill an Exari in seconds. Yeah, you gotta be careful with these guys, Jake agreed, casually avoiding the creature's snapping jaws. But they taste great once you cook out all the poison. The trick is to boil them for about an hour first. He walked back toward his shelter, while carrying the deadly fish. The crew could see his home now, and it was unlike anything they expected. Jake had built a complex structure using pieces of his crashed ship, local stone, and what appeared to be bones from massive creatures. Pretty nice setup, right? Jake said proudly. Took me about 6 months to get it the way I wanted. The walls are double-layered with insulation made from animal fur. Keeps the temperature steady when those cold fronts come through. Cold fronts? Asked Captain Zareth. Yeah. Temperature drops to about 40 below zero for a few days every month. Then it swings back up to about 60 above. You learn to dress in layers. The crew stared at their instruments. The temperature swings Jake was describing would kill most galactic species within minutes. He talked about them like discussing the weather. Jake, Dr. Yuthara said slowly, can you tell us more about Earth's climate? Sure. Earth's got pretty much every kind of weather you can imagine. We've got frozen areas at the poles where it stays below freezing all year, deserts where it gets up to 50 degrees Celsius in the summer, tropical areas with massive storms, mountain regions where the air is too thin to breathe properly, deep ocean areas where the pressure would crush most things flat. Jake continued, working while he talked, skinning the poisonous fish with a knife he had made from ship metal. His movements were quick and efficient, showing years of practice. And people live in all these different areas? Asked Kethmore. Oh yeah, humans are pretty adaptable. We've got cities in the Arctic, towns in the desert, people living on mountains, settlements on islands that get hit by hurricanes every year. We just build our homes to handle whatever the local environment throws at us. Engineer Belnox was running calculations on his tablet. Captain, based on Jake's descriptions, Earth would be classified as a Class-25 Deathworld. That classification doesn't officially exist because we assumed no planet could be that hostile to life. What about the wildlife Jake mentioned earlier? Captain Zarath asked. Oh man, Earth has some amazing animals, Jake said enthusiastically while starting a fire using flint and steel. We've got polar bears that weigh 800 kilograms and can run faster than most vehicles. Great white sharks that are 6 meters long with bite forces that can crush small boats. Saltwater crocodiles that can hold their breath underwater for an hour while waiting to ambush prey. He paused to tend to his fire, adding wood from trees that their sensors showed were harder than most metals. Then you've got the smaller dangerous ones, venomous snakes that can kill you in minutes, spiders with neurotoxins, jellyfish that are basically floating death. Box jellyfish venom can stop a human heart in under 5 minutes. Dr. Yathara was frantically taking notes. And humans coexist with these creatures? Well, mostly we just avoid the really dangerous ones, though some people keep the smaller venomous ones as pets, and we hunt some of the big predators for food or if they become a problem. You hunt them? Veltar asked with amazement. Sure. Humans have been hunting since we evolved. We're persistence predators, which means we chase things until they get tired and then kill them. We're not the biggest or strongest, but we can keep going longer than most animals. Jake demonstrated by jogging around his shelter area while continuing to talk. The crew watched as he maintained a steady pace that would exhaust most galactic species within minutes. He showed no signs of fatigue after running for over an hour. Persistence hunting, he explained, barely breathing hard. Humans can run for hours without stopping. Most prey animals are built for quick bursts of speed, but they overheat after a few minutes. We just follow their tracks and keep chasing until they collapse from exhaustion. The bridge was silent as the crew processed this information. They were talking to a creature from a species that hunted by running their prey to death. Jake, Captain Zarath said carefully, you mentioned that humans dominated your planet. How did that happen? Oh, it took a long time. Probably a few 100,000 years. Early humans were pretty small and weak compared to the other predators, but we were smart and we worked in groups. We made tools, used fire, developed language to coordinate hunts. Jake was preparing his toxic fish for cooking, cutting it into pieces with practiced skill. We started with simple tools like spears and clubs, but we kept improving. Eventually, we developed agriculture, which let us support bigger populations. Then we built cities, created more advanced weapons, developed technology. What happened to the other predators? Asked Dr. Yathara. Most of them we just outcompeted. Humans are really good at taking over territory and reshaping it for our needs. We cut down forests, drained swamps, built farms and cities. The big predators need lots of space and specific environments, so most of them died out or retreated to areas humans didn't want. Jake started cooking his fish over the fire. The smell made the crew's environmental systems trigger contamination alerts. Some we hunted to extinction because they were threats to human settlements or livestock. Others we just pushed into smaller and smaller territories until their populations couldn't survive. He stirred his meal with a wooden spoon. We felt bad about it later, so now we have conservation programs to protect the ones that are left. Zoos, national parks, breeding programs, that kind of thing. The crew realized the full implications of what Jake was describing. Humans had systematically eliminated most of the apex predators on their world not through superior biology, but through intelligence, cooperation, and tool use. They had reshaped an entire planet to suit their needs. How many humans are there now? Asked Captain Zarath. About 8 billion, like I said. Could be more in some areas, but that's the last count I heard before I left on my exploration mission. And all of them are capable of what you're doing here? Jake looked around at his survival setup and laughed. This? Nah. Most humans live in cities now. They wouldn't know how to build a shelter or hunt their own food. But if they had to learn, they could probably figure it out. Humans are good at adapting to new situations. He took a bite of his cooked fish and made a satisfied sound. Though, I gotta admit I was always more outdoorsy than most people. Liked camping, hiking, that stuff. This is just camping with higher stakes. Dr. Yathara looked at her readings one more time. Captain, I'm running biological simulations based on Jake's descriptions of his species. If his accounts are accurate, humans are the most dangerous life form we've ever encountered. Dangerous how? asked the captain. They're persistence predators with advanced tool-making abilities, complex social cooperation, and adaptation capabilities that let them survive in environments that should be impossible. And there are 8 billion of them on a world that makes this Class-20 Deathworld look hospitable. Jake finished his meal and stood up, stretching in the poisonous air like he was enjoying a pleasant evening breeze. "So," he said cheerfully, "when do you think you guys might be able to give me a ride? Home?" The crew of the Ethereal Dawn spent 3 days debating whether to rescue Jake Morrison. Captain Zareth called several emergency meetings with her senior staff to discuss the situation. "I want to help him," she said during one meeting. "But, are we prepared to bring an apex predator from a Class 25 Deathworld onto our ship?" Security Commander Veltar had been studying video footage of Jake's daily activities. "Captain, I've analyzed his movements and physical capabilities. His strength appears to be at least 3 times galactic average. His reaction speed is faster than our combat systems can track. His endurance is beyond anything in our databases, but he seems friendly," pointed out Communications Officer Yextree. "He's been helpful and polite in all our conversations." Dr. Yathara looked up from her research. "That may be part of what makes his species so dangerous. High intelligence, social, cooperation, and the ability to appear non-threatening while being incredibly deadly." Engineer Belnox had a different concern. "Even if we wanted to rescue him, how would we do it? Our shuttles can't survive in that atmosphere long enough to pick him up." The captain made her decision. "Jake Morrison is stranded on that planet, through no fault of his own. We're going to get him off, whatever it takes. Belnox, I want you to design a rescue system." It took 2 more days to prepare. They built a heavily armored rescue pod that could descend through the planet's deadly atmosphere, pick up Jake, and return to the ship. The pod was basically a flying bunker with life support systems designed to handle a human passenger. When they contacted Jake to tell him about the rescue plan, he sounded excited. "That's great. I was starting to think I might be stuck here permanently, though I have to admit, it's been kind of fun figuring out how to survive on this place." "Jake," Captain Zareth said, "we need to discuss some safety procedures for when you come aboard our ship." "Sure thing. What do you need me to do?" "Well, our medical officer needs to run some tests to make sure you're not carrying any dangerous pathogens, and we'll need to set up special quarters for you." Special quarters? The captain didn't want to admit they were basically building a containment cell. "Just to make sure you're comfortable, our ship is designed for different species, so the environment might not be ideal for humans." "That's thoughtful of you." "I'm pretty adaptable, though." The rescue went smoothly. Jake gathered a few personal items and some examples of the tools he had made, then climbed into the rescue pod without any fear or hesitation. The crew watched nervously as the pod brought him up to their ship. When the pod docked, Captain Zareth was waiting with a full security team, medical personnel, and containment equipment. They had prepared for the possibility that Jake might be violent or unpredictable. The pod opened, and Jake Morrison stepped out with a big smile on his face. "Wow, this is amazing," he said, looking around at the docking bay. "I've never seen an alien spaceship before. The technology is incredible." He was smaller than they expected, maybe 1.7 meters tall and weighing perhaps 75 kilograms. He looked friendly and harmless, with short brown hair, blue eyes, and what appeared to be a permanent expression of curiosity and good humor. But the crew's sensors immediately detected the reality behind his appearance. His bone density was off the charts. His muscle mass was compact but incredibly efficient. His cardiovascular system was running at performance levels that would be impossible for most species. "Jake Morrison," Captain Zareth said formally. "Welcome aboard the Ethereal Dawn." "Thank you, Captain. This is really exciting. I can't wait to learn about your technology and meet your crew." Healer Morden approached with his medical scanner. "Jake, I need to run some basic health checks to make sure you're okay after 3 years on that planet." "No problem, Doc." The medical scans revealed even more surprising information. Jake's immune system was actively fighting off dozens of diseases and toxins that would have killed most galactic species. His body was processing heavy metals, radiation, and chemical compounds that shouldn't be survivable. and somehow he was healthier than when he had first crashed on the planet. This is remarkable, Healer Mordan whispered to the captain. His body has adapted to neutralize threats that we don't even have treatments for. It's like his immune system learned to handle everything that planet could throw at him. They showed Jake to his quarters, which they had reinforced and equipped with emergency containment systems. But Jake didn't seem to notice the security measures. He was too busy being amazed by the technology. "This bed is incredible," he said, sitting on the memory foam mattress. "And look at this display screen. Is this how you control the room environment?" Chief Engineer Belnox had come to observe Jake's reactions to their technology. "Yes, you can adjust temperature, lighting, air composition, and gravity within certain limits." "Gravity control? That's amazing. What else can this ship do?" For the next several hours, Jake peppered the crew with questions about their technology, their species, their worlds, and their civilization. His curiosity was genuine and infectious. Soon, crew members were volunteering to give him tours of different sections of the ship. In the engineering section, Jake impressed everyone by quickly understanding their systems and suggesting improvements based on techniques from Earth. "You know, if you modified this power coupling with a feedback loop, you could increase efficiency by about 12%, he said, studying their engine designs. Engineer Belnox ran the calculations. "He's right. How did you figure that out?" "So quickly. Basic engineering principles. We use similar systems on Earth for power generation and spacecraft propulsion." In the medical bay, Jake helped Healer Mordan solve a problem with their biological waste processing system by suggesting a solution based on human digestive biology. Human stomachs produce acid that's strong enough to break down almost any organic compound, Jake explained. If you replicate that process artificially, you could handle waste that your current system can't process. The doctor was amazed. "Your species has internal acid production that strong?" "Oh yeah, stomach acid is pretty nasty stuff. That's how we can eat such a wide variety of foods without getting sick." In the security section, Veltar was impressed when Jake demonstrated hand-to-hand combat techniques that were unlike anything in galactic military databases. "This is called grappling," Jake explained, showing her how to use an opponent's weight and momentum against them. "Humans developed it because we're usually smaller than the things we fight. The idea is to use technique instead of brute strength." Even though Jake was being gentle and careful, Veltar could feel the incredible power in his movements. This human could probably break her armored exoskeleton with his bare hands if he wanted to. But what impressed the crew most was Jake's personality. He was helpful, curious, and kind. He went out of his way to learn about their cultures and make friends. He shared stories about Earth and humans that were fascinating rather than frightening. "Most humans are really social," Jake explained during dinner in the mess hall. "We like meeting new people and learning new things. Finding out about all of you and your civilizations is probably the most interesting thing that's ever happened to me." Dr. Yathara had been studying Jake's behavior carefully. "Captain, I don't think this human is dangerous to us. His species appears to be naturally cooperative and curious rather than aggressive." Captain Zareth was beginning to agree. Jake Morrison was clearly capable of incredible violence when necessary, but he seemed to genuinely prefer friendship and cooperation. "Jake," she said, "we've received orders to take you to the Galactic Council station. They want to meet with you." "The Galactic Council? That sounds important." "It is. You're the first confirmed survivor of a Class-20 Deathworld, and the first human anyone has encountered. This is the biggest discovery in galactic history." Jake grinned. "Well, I guess I'm about to become famous. Do you think they'll want to hear about Earth?" Captain Zareth thought about 8 billion humans living on a Class 25 Deathworld, all potentially as capable as Jake Morrison. "Oh yes," she said. "I think they're going to be very interested in hearing about Earth." The Galactic Council Station was the largest artificial structure in known space, home to representatives from over 300 different species. When the ethereal dawn arrived, the station was buzzing with activity, unlike anything in recent memory. "I've never seen so many ships here at once," Captain Zareth observed as they approached the docking bays. Ships from every major civilization in the galaxy had rushed to the station when word spread about the human discovery. Jake Morrison stood at the observation window, staring in wonder at the massive station. This is incredible. How many people live here? About 2 million representatives, staff, and visitors on average, replied Communications Officer Yextry. But right now there are probably twice that many. Everyone wants to meet you. Me? I'm just one guy who got stranded on a bad planet. Dr. Yathara looked at Jake with amazement. He still didn't seem to understand the significance of what he represented. Jake, you survived for 3 years on a world that should have killed you in hours. You're living proof that life can exist in conditions we thought were impossible. When they docked, a formal delegation was waiting for them. High Counselor Vrexnal of the Corvani Empire, Admiral Thosek of the Hegemony Defense Corps, and Dr. Zil Andra, the galaxy's leading xenobiologist, were among the dignitaries present. High Counselor Vrexnal stepped forward as Jake emerged from the ship. The Corvani was 3 meters tall with silver skin and multiple arms, but he seemed nervous as he approached the small human. Jake Morrison of Earth, he said formally. Welcome to the Galactic Council. We are honored to meet the first of your species. Jake extended his hand for a handshake, a human gesture that confused the assembled aliens until he explained it. It's nice to meet you too, sir. Thank you for having me. The formal presentations began immediately. Jake was escorted to the council's main chamber, where representatives from dozens of species had gathered to observe. The chamber could hold 50,000 beings, and it was completely full. Jake Morrison, High Counselor Vrexnal announced, please tell us about your homeworld. Jake looked around at the massive audience and seemed slightly overwhelmed, but he spoke clearly and confidently. Earth is located in what you probably call the Sol system. It's the third planet from our sun. We have one large moon that creates tides in our oceans. The planet is about 70% water and 30% land. He paused, thinking about how to describe his world to aliens who had never seen anything like it. Earth has a lot of different environments. We have frozen areas at the top and bottom of the planet where it stays below freezing all year. We have hot desert regions where it rarely rains. We have tropical areas with dense forests and heavy rainfall. We have mountain ranges that go up over 8 kilometers high. The audience murmured at this. Most species considered anything over 3 kilometers to be an uninhabitable altitude. The weather can be pretty extreme, Jake continued. We get storms with winds over 300 kilometers per hour. We have earthquakes that can level cities, volcanoes that can change the climate for years, tsunamis that can travel across entire oceans. Dr. Zilandra interrupted. Jake, you describe these events as if they're normal occurrences. Well, they are normal for Earth. Humans just learn to live with them. We build our cities away from active volcanoes and earthquake zones when we can. We have early warning systems. For storms and tsunamis, we design our buildings to handle high winds and ground movement. And humans have lived through all of these disasters? Asked Admiral Thosek. Oh yeah, for thousands of years. Actually, humans have survived some pretty major catastrophes. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Asteroid impacts. Disease outbreaks that killed huge portions of the population. Jake seemed to realize that his audience was looking more and more shocked with each thing he mentioned. But we always recovered, he added quickly. Humans are pretty good at adapting and rebuilding. High Counselor Vrexnal leaned forward. Jake, how many humans currently live on Earth? About 8 billion, give or take. The chamber erupted in surprised chatter. 8 billion individuals of any species was more than most star systems contained. And all of them are capable of surviving in the conditions you've described? Asked Dr. Zilandra. Most of them, yeah. I mean, modern humans live pretty comfortable lives compared to our ancestors. We have technology that makes things easier. But if they had to, most humans could probably learn to survive in pretty harsh conditions. Jake looked around at the assembled aliens and seemed to sense their concern. Are you guys worried about something? Admiral Thosek stood up. He was a member of the hegemony's most elite warrior species, bred for combat across multiple worlds. Jake Morrison, during your time on the Class-20 world, you demonstrated combat capabilities that exceed our military standards. You killed Multiple apex predators using improvised weapons. You survived environmental conditions that would destroy our equipment. Well, I had to defend myself, and I had 3 years to practice and learn the local wildlife's habits. Could other humans do what you did? Jake thought about this seriously. Some could do it better than me. Military personnel, survival experts, people who grew up in harsh environments. Others would have a harder time, but they could probably figure it out if they had to. The chamber was silent as everyone processed this information. Dr. Zil Andra activated a holographic display showing Jake's biological scans. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the medical readings from Jake Morrison. His bone density is 4 times galactic average. His muscle efficiency is beyond our measurement scales. His immune system is actively neutralizing toxins that we consider universally lethal. She switched to another display showing Earth's environmental data based on Jake's descriptions. Based on Jake's accounts, Earth would be classified as a Class 25 Deathworld. This classification doesn't exist in our system because we assumed no life could survive such conditions. And there are 8 billion beings like this on that world? Asked a representative from the Crystalline Consortium. That's right, Jake said cheerfully, though most of them are probably smarter than me. I was never the brightest guy in school. High Counselor Vrexnall asked the question that everyone was thinking. Jake Morrison, does your species have faster than light travel? Not yet, but we're working on it. My ship, the Pioneer's Dream, was one of our first attempts at long-range exploration. We can travel between planets in our system pretty easily, and we've been sending out longer scouting missions to nearby star systems. How long before humans develop true interstellar capability? Asked Admiral Thosek. Jake shrugged. Hard to say. Maybe 50 years, maybe 100. Human technology develops pretty fast. We went from riding horses to flying in space in less than a century. The military implications were clear to everyone in the chamber. In a few decades, the galaxy might be dealing with billions of apex predators from the most dangerous world ever discovered, all equipped with rapidly advancing technology. Jake? High Counselor Vrexnall said carefully. What are human intentions? Regarding contact with other species? Oh, most humans would be really excited to meet you guys, Jake said enthusiastically. We love learning about new things and meeting new people. There are some humans who might be worried or scared at first, but mostly we'd want to be friends and trade knowledge. He looked around at the worried faces in the chamber. We're not a violent species if that's what you're concerned about. We prefer cooperation to conflict. We only fight when we have to protect ourselves or our families, Dr. Zilandra thought. About Jake's casual descriptions of humans dominating their planet and eliminating most apex predators through superior tactics and tools. Jake, she said, you mentioned that humans became the dominant species on Earth. How did that happen? Oh, that took a long time. Probably several 100,000 years of evolution and development. Early humans were small and not very strong, but we were smart and we worked together. We made tools, used fire, developed language. Jake was warming to the subject, his enthusiasm growing as he talked about human history. We started with simple weapons like spears and clubs, but we kept improving. We learned agriculture so we could feed larger populations. We built cities, developed writing, created more advanced technology. What happened to the other predators? Asked Admiral Thosek. Most of them couldn't compete with us. Humans are really good at changing environments to suit our needs. We built farms, roads, cities. The big predators need lots of territory and specific conditions, so most of them died out as human populations grew. Jake paused, looking slightly sad. We realize now that we maybe went too far. A lot of amazing species went extinct because of human activity. We're trying to do better now, protecting the remaining wildlife and preserving natural environments. The chamber was quiet as everyone considered what Jake had described. A species that had systematically outcompeted every other predator on their world, reshaped an entire planet to suit their needs, and then developed enough wisdom to recognize and try to correct their mistakes. High Counselor Vrexnall made the announcement that everyone was expecting. The Galactic Council will need to debate the implications of this discovery. Jake Morrison, you will be our honored guest while we